works. I think it works.
Okay.
1, 2, 3. Yep.
I'll reiterate. If you just walked in, there's pens, Phocus pens, limited edition. For the people that have already heard, grab another.
You forgot to mention the pens are £3 each. Joking.
Welcome everyone. Welcome to our first talk and our first sort of big event of the Lent term. I've almost been distracting. Welcome to our first Phocus event. Yeah, it's really good to have all of you here. Thank you all for supporting us, and if you follow us on social medias, thanks for all the likes and everything on there. And if not, feel free to follow us, and we'll have all our social media links up here. So yeah, thank you all for coming. So this is our first talk, and it's with Mark Box, Human in Cambridge. If you've been in Cambridge for a while, you might know the name Human in Cambridge. You might have seen him around King's Parade taking photos of literally everyone. If not, it might be a fairly new thing to you. So I hope this introduces you really well to his work, and then maybe you'll go around King's Parade in your nicest outfits, hoping you'll photograph you, because I've done it, and for those of you who know who he is, I guarantee you've done it as well. Mark started photography at a really young age, sort of 8, 9, I remember our conversations, and he moved more into commercial work at the age of 18, doing film photography as promotional work for clubs. That kind of baffled my mind when I heard it, because I don't know how you use film cameras in a club, but
With great difficulty.
But it just gives more credit to his photography abilities. Since starting the Human in Cambridge project around the first sort of lockdown period, it's had a huge cult following. It's just grown exponentially from when it started. About 3,000, 4,000 followers now on most social media, Instagram, somewhere around there.
Is it 4,000? No, 3,000.
We'll check that fact. But okay. And like I said, you've probably seen him around King's Parade taking photos of 4,000. Mark literally lived and breathed this project. When I first met with him, he rushed off twice to go and photograph people who just saw mid-conversation. And to me, I didn't see it as rude or abrupt. It just gave more of a personal touch to the project. Most of the photos he takes are during his lunch breaks, during his working day, which I think just gives a great example of his passion for the project and just the brilliance of his work. So, without me talking, I'm probably going really red because public speaking. Me and Mark are just gonna have a sit down, have a chat. We'll have a Q&A at the end to ask any questions, and then Mark will happily have a look at some of your work, any of you brought anything, or if not, I'm sure he'd be happy to answer some messages after if you've got any work you'd like to show him, social media work. Mark is currently working in the digital content unit at the Cambridge Library, so if any of you have seen, let's hope the PowerPoint works, this image of Darwin's first ideas and first tree drawing of natural selection with the whole "I think" quote, Mark was one of the first people to scan this digitally. So, nice little interesting fact. So, without further ado, first talk of Phocus, ladies and gentlemen, Mark Box, Human in Cambridge. Hey, how you doing? Just to sort of preface it, me and Mark have had several conversations before this, so we're quite used to talking about this sort of stuff. So, as I said at the start there, you started photography, I'm sure with a lot of people as well, at quite a young age, around 8, 9, sort of around there. And you said it was with, I can't remember what you said, but you said it was like pinholes through like toilet paper tubes.
Well, I first started off with just like a normal kind of paper DIY little pinhole camera. And then I remember in primary school we had you got these little toilet rolls, and you put like tissue paper on either end, put a little pinprick, so you've got like a little mini camera obscura, and I was kind of fascinated by that. I highly recommend you like try and build one yourself. It's kind of cool.
And so that was sort of, do you think that was sort of the start of where you liked photography, or was that sort of messing about with no real intention to go into photography later?
Yeah, no, I was just messing around. I think I really got into photography. I used to have the little digital Casio cameras, and I took them around with me on my holiday trips and just took photos like all the time. But I think what really got me into photography was when I did the analog club photography.
Which you're going to have to explain, because how?
Well, weirdly enough, I used to work for a temping agency, and I was doing civil service, and I found a Panasonic SLR film camera, and nobody claimed it, so they said I could have it. And I used to go to the clubs and blag my way in for free, pretending I was a club photographer. And I'd take photos and stuff, And then the promoter one night said to me, "You don't work for us, do you?" I was like, "No." He goes, "Well, do you want to?" I was like, "All right." And from there on, they pay me to go in, not very much, free entry and free drinks. And I didn't really know what I was doing either, because I knew the fundamentals of using the camera. But to be honest, when looking back, I've looked at the photographs, and I remember switching from film to then, like 10, 15 years later, picking up a Canon 400D and going, what the hell? It's you've got so much more going on with the digital camera than you do with an analog camera, and I found using film cameras way more simpler than using digital. Well, from transitioning to it, so it was a big step, but yeah, it was difficult, it was challenging.
So how many years were you doing commercial stuff before Human in Cambridge came about? What sort of work has it been? Has it been all commercial up till that point, or?
So I stopped professionally around 2008, and that's when I got back into doing club photography in London, and I was working for them for about 10 years. And sorry, what was the question again?
This may happen.
Yeah.
I suppose I'll sort of jump to the next point with, so Human in Cambridge, is this your first sort of passion project, or did it evolve out of anything commercial?
No, again, just solely out of passion, just out of the joy of doing it. Again, like I said before, as I mentioned before, I've done a lot of commercial stuff, so interior photography, club photography, weddings. As a photographer, everyone's done a wedding, it was just born just out of the passion for me to go out wanting to kind of photograph people, because I find people really, really interesting. Everyone here is completely unique, and for me that's what I wanted to go out and try and capture.
And I personally thought that's a really good idea for a photography project. I remember when we talked about it, that's one of the unique things. I suppose should give the rundown of the full what Human in Cambridge is about. So it started as a lockdown project, as I'm sure lots of photography things have started in lockdown for so many people. It started as a lockdown project, and what was it that made you want to first start it? Because the essence of it is just capturing people we see in the street. It's street photography, but it's not fully that as well. It's something of an elevated sort of purpose and idea. So just give us a rundown of what the Human in Cambridge project is in a nutshell, but not fully like.
Well, it's different from your standard kind of candid street photography, because it's everyone that's in it. It's all with consent. Everyone knows they're having the photograph taken, and I think the essence behind it is it's about engaging with people and kind of making that connection. And I think for me, what was really important at the time was, again, everyone was just like shut off and cut off from everyone. So when we were allowed to go back out, it was an opportunity for me to kind of, reach out and kind of start making connections with people again, and just, building a little rapport with people, Yeah.
So the project in itself has quite a lot of community-based into it. It's sort of community-based as much as it is for yourself. And I remember you said as well, it was, from your personal perspective, it was having an interest in a very not creepy way, in sort of watching people, having interest in watching people and them go by in the world, which I think for a lot of people can sometimes get a bit lost. We get so caught up in all the other things we have to do in life that it sort of gets a bit lost looking at the world that you're in and just where you're walking, what you're doing, who's around you. And I think Human in Cambridge is really, the project itself is really good for that, because all it is all the different people everywhere. I mean, like with our conversations when we met the first time, you just ran off and found two people you wanted to photograph mid-conversation. I think it really captures it. So was it purely just from the fact that you like watching and observing people that made you want to do it, or was it more about that you wanted to show people they should be looking, or was it sort of that become a sort of an indirect thing about it?
I think for me, what I see, I think with all photographers, you want to kind of show the world how you see the world through your eyes, through the lens, and I think I took an appreciation, especially when I first started this, the student population compared to previous years. what really I found really fascinating was, the fashion style, and it was never fashion orientated at all. It was again just capturing people, but I was just in awe at looking at everyone's style, how they express themselves, and very vibrant, very colourful, very expressive, and I found that really quite fascinating. Everything that I saw, I wanted to capture and kind of share that as well, because we see everyone around all the time, but we don't really pay much attention all the time. And I think I'm capturing fleeting moments again during my lunch break.
Yeah.
So I've literally got such a small window of opportunity, and there's been so many times when I've seen kind of people go by, or I'm having a conversation with someone, and I'm like, oh, I can't leave this conversation, and then they walk away, and I'm like, oh man, I really hope I see them again. And that's yeah.
And I'd say in terms of a sort of passion project with regards to that essence of it, it really is like a really big passion project for you. It's not just a project for you, it's kind of part of now who you are and what you enjoy doing. As I mentioned at the start, Mark goes out and does this during his lunch break at work, which is sort of 45-minute hour window slot to just go and do this. And you just can go out and capture about sort of 6 to 10 people, maybe even more, just in that small window of time. And I think for many people who are interested in street photography, street photography is about sort of just capturing moments as they are, but there still can be that essence of wanting to find the right point in the street, or the right person, or seeing the right person go by. For you, it's just all the time, everywhere, everyone you meet. And I think that really, like as you said, captures the essence of wanting to just see people as they are in the street. So do you think that's fair to say?
Yeah, and that's another thing that I'll make a note as well. So say if you're walking down the street and I grab you and you've got a kebab in your hand, I'm like, no, keep the kebab. It's great, because it's capturing. It's when I first see you, that is what. That's what I see, and that's what I want to capture. A lot of people say, "Oh, shall I keep my mask on or off?" I'm like, whatever looks best. However, if you want to keep it on, keep it on. And again, the thing with kebab, it's I've got quite a few pictures of people with kebabs. So yeah.
So in terms of I think sort of just from that small part we talked about, there's a lot behind this project and just the small kind of social media space in which it exists. I mean, now it's reaching out to different publications, and I think people who might know, it's got a huge cult following in Cambridge. It's grown massively among students and sort of shop owners. Like, if you go along King's Parade and ask anyone, they probably know who Mark is. And I imagine there's so many people who do. So do you think with it that, did you have a goal of it going as far as it would, or was it purely just, I want to do this for myself, and it's just really resonated with people?
No, exactly that. I had no goal for it to, or any mind for it to kind of go any further, and I was actually quite surprised at just how much momentum it picked up. And again, it was solely for myself, which I guess is a little bit selfish, but it was again, I got so much passion and joy from just going up to people and talking to them, and I found what really helped was actually just run up to them and just paying them a compliment. Because when I first started, I would say, "Oh, can I take a portrait?" And 9 out of 10 times people would say, "No, no." But then when I started kind of just starting off with a compliment, tell them how great they looked, it kind of is the icebreaker to kind of start a conversation, tell them a little about what you're doing, and again, 9 out of 10 times people are more than happy to take part. And a lot of people are quite shocked that somebody's wanting to come up and take the photo, so it's giving something back.
Yeah, I think that's a really nice aspect to it as well. It's much as a community thing as much as it is a personal thing to you. So one of the things I remember we talked about was if there were sort of any key seminal moments of when you thought, I'm going to do this as a project. And I remember you said that one of them was the camera itself, in that not that this was the focus key point to it, but that it was sort of changing your idea of how you were going to take the photo. Instead of going around with a big bulky sort of Canon and Nikon, you shifted to a small Fuji.
Yeah.
So do you think that was kind of a push towards it, or had you already decided, I'm going to do this, I need to change my
No, massively no. So, like I said, I used to shoot a Canon 5D series, and the only thing, and I really love street photography, the traditional style, and the only thing that was holding me back was actually having such a large bulky camera. And then I took the plunge, sold some lenses, and picked up the Fuji X-T3 because I wanted to get myself out there. I wanted to always be able to, have a camera on me, and having a big DSLR. It's heavy, it's intrusive, and it really did hold me back for quite a number of years. So going down the size of this, so it's lighter and smaller, it really gave me the push, and it got me out there. Yeah.
And I suppose the other point I was going to raise is sort of one of the things is once you'd got the camera, when you sort of realised, I mean, feel free to explain it more, but I saw that when you realised the format you wanted to do, it started with this individual. This is Nicola.
Yeah.
One of the first photos that you took, sort of in the style of starting the Human in Cambridge project, deciding this is what you want to be.
Yeah.
Was it from this picture and how it's framed, the colours and just everything about its style? Was it from this that you kind of thought, I want the project to look like this? Because you could have done it for portraits, landscapes, so many different angles, but your work is a consistent portrait of a person very similar to this. And we'll have a few some pictures of Mark's rolling in the background soon. So was it from this point of this first very good picture, by the way, that you sort of decided, I'm going to stick to this format, this is how I like it, and I think this best represents people? Or did you just think that, or was it purely an aesthetic thing? Is there sort of thought and emotion behind the format, or is it just an aesthetic type?
It's so again, this is Nicola, and I saw it down. That's Burrell's Walk. So that was on the way going back to work from lunch break. And this one, I love the colours, I love the leading lines, the red hair and the kind of the autumn leaves, and I just loved everything about it. And my only regret is that because obviously I've changed my style where I focus on details of what people are wearing, is that I didn't actually take more shots. I literally took 2 photos, one like that and then one full length. And obviously I've just gone with that one because it was the better one. But I really loved it. It had a really good response. A lot of people liked it, and that's what gave me the idea to kind of maybe make something out of it, to kind of produce more images like that. And a funny story actually. I've been looking for this person since the very beginning, since I took this picture, and I think I photographed her once around the corner from the library, and she was wearing these awesome shoes and like flares, and I was like, "Are you that girl?" And she was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Oh yeah, you should get in touch on Instagram," which she didn't. And then I spotted her again not too long ago by King's, again wearing this amazing kind of beautiful dress and kind of low cut kind of white top, and I was just like, I said to her, I said, "You are literally the icon of my work. You're what made Cambridge, Humans of Cambridge, what it is today." So, yeah, very important image for me.
And I think as you were saying there, that you wish you'd captured more details, sort of rings or whatnot. I think that kind of is a practical thing that you now incorporate into all your work, but I think it also has a lot of meaning behind it, because I think, as you may have gathered by now, it's a very passion project for Mark, but also it's about the idea I get, and maybe the idea you'll get as well with it, is that it's about capturing loads of individuals, and that individual is so important for that picture and that moment. But in the grand scheme of things, the whole work is just about everyone. It's about everyone, and it's almost about no one in a sense. I feel like you can sort of agree with that, I think.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what makes it, in terms of a street photography project, such a unique one, in the sense that, like I've said before, a lot of street photography things, they seem to focus on sort of random aspects or very specific aspects, or even when it's trying to be random, it's still very sort of niche in a way. Whereas with Mark's work, it's just everyone everywhere just as he sees them, and it's not particularly anything, there's nothing particularly that you look for in a person as much. It's just about sort of who's there, and maybe even if it's a one tiny unique thing like a very bright earring or one bright ring or something like that, and even not, or is it just sort of the personality they exude, that's what enters into the remit of being worth it.
There was a couple of Cockney ladies who were I heard them cackling away, and and they're walking around with balloons. They looked like they'd just come back from like a hen party. And I walked over to them. I said I could hear you from like a mile away, and I said I've really got to capture you guys because they had so much character. They weren't wearing anything in particular that was very kind of eye-catching, but it was more like I heard their personalities, they're not on the slides now, but if you have a look on the Instagram, have a little scroll through, probably recognise them.
Speaking of that, I will jump to the slides. So we're just going to have some images rolling in the background of Mark's work. I think, as you can see, as it rolls on, just the sort of breadth of characters and people that Mark captures is just insane, really, and just insane to think that all of it is done either, well, mostly during lunch breaks, which I find one of the most baffling things about it. But one of the things I want to talk about as well, because it's all very good that we have all this sort of meaning behind all the work, but then, as I say, there is an art to the practicality of street photography, and that especially if you're capturing people, you've got to be interacting with people quite a lot. And myself and Sophie, having been captured by Mark, the minute we finished talking about we should get Mark in for a tour, we went around the corner and there he was. And so we've both been shot by Mark, and just the character, like just the friendliness and invitingness you give off is just insane as well, especially for a street photographer as well. It's just so inviting, and it makes the person feel special in that moment. You really feel like you are the subject of this really great project. And as with the whole ethos of it, you kind of are. When it's your picture up there, it's about you and your personality. In the grand scheme, it's about so many people as well. So what's your approach to the practicalities of it? Like, how do you sort of get the courage, or how did you first build the courage to just go up to people and ask, and what do you do to sort of encourage them to release part of their personality out for the photos?
Well, some of you probably already know my catchphrase is you've just found out you've won 1 million potatoes, yeah. So normally if I'm approaching someone and they're looking maybe a little bit stiff, I always try and get them to have a little laugh. So I always use that. It's a little bit cheesy now. It's overused, but it does work. And to get the courage, the confidence to actually approach people did take quite a few years, and that goes back to when I did the club photography. And I got my first gig. So I did Cambridge. I did like Fez Club and Bellari, or Sendi's as it might still be known, or was known as. And when I first went to London, I gone from this tiny little club setting with small group of people to about 1,000 people in the club at Coco, and I was very intimidated. And I remember like going up to people, going like, "Do you mind if I like take your photo?" No pizzazz at all. And it took me about a year, maybe a couple of years working there to actually have the courage to literally just control a whole crowd, or even the whole dance floor from the stage, and get them all to interact. And that's obviously kind of, I've kind of brought this across into the project itself. And again, as I said before, it's all about kind of making that connection. So complimenting them, if you see, obviously I've gone up to a person and, for particular reasons. So, say go with the bag, or, the dress, or say like, I love the bag, the dress looks really cool. And that way you've already kind of, as I said before, you've broken the ice, and then you can just start the chit chat. And then again, just before, when people didn't know what the project was about, I'd have to explain what I was doing, but do it quickly so I still, had their attention.
Yeah, and I think that is one of the aspects as well that really feeds into the project, is that it creates this friendly sort of culture and environment around the project. And it's not just about the work that you're doing and what you're doing with it and you going out taking photos. It really is more of a community photo project in a way. Not that people are contributing themselves, but they are almost contributing by being them, being themselves, which I think just feeds into it even more, and just, really summarises it very well as well. So would you say that with the street photography aspect, it is sort of not to sound sort of too scary with it, but it almost is like a bit of baptism by fire, that you just have to throw yourself into it and really just throw yourself into talking to people? Because I think from this, we get the visual aspect of so many different people out there, so many different sort of race, creeds, cultures, and all of that for this project doesn't really matter because it's all just about them being people, but it also feeds into would you say it's sort of fed into your life experience as well, of meeting all these different people and just making you feel more connected to Cambridge as a whole?
Do you know what? Yeah, no, absolutely. And this is something I really appreciate. What the project's done for me is it not only has it, I've made a lot of, I've met a lot of really interesting, fascinating people, but I've made, new friends, and I've connected with students in a way that I would never thought would be possible. I've been in Cambridge for over 20 years now, and I've never known the students as well as I do now. And I kind of feel privileged to be able to be part of their community, and it's nice, and it gives you a sense of belonging. And what my photos have done for some of the students has actually helped them when they first moved to Cambridge. So what I've also found out as well, obviously, just everyone seems to know everyone. So it does help people kind of, like, people I don't know connect as well. So it just had such a positive impact, not only on for me, taking the photos, but for the people involved in it as well. And I think that's really special.
Yeah, and I think it's really good at, like you said, it's really good at connecting outside people as well, because I remember just while we were rolling this PowerPoint before, just me, myself, Sophie, and some others were just saying, I'm sure many of you recognise people on there. We're just saying, oh, we know that person. I know that person. Like, oh, I've seen him before. And it's just one of those things that it probably helps the fact that Cambridge is not the biggest place on earth, but it helps the fact that just it's a beautiful representation of all the people out there and just all the people you could meet through it as well. Just the fact that we recognise someone that, oh, I know you from Human in Cambridge, or the fact that you've seen it around so much that you know who Mark is without even having met him. I mean, that applied to me, that I had just seen these photos crop up and I thought it was really good, and then just saw the absolute breadth of work and the amount of people I knew on it as well, that I just thought, wow, this is insane. And it's just really builds up that community, which I haven't really seen a photography project like this before in terms of street photography. Because I may be wrong, but when I think sort of street photography, you think about sort of the moment, the things that are there and what you're seeing, and oh, look at this location or these people that are here. You don't necessarily think that I'm connected to that in that sort of way, or it doesn't feel like a community sort of thing. It just sort of things, pictures on the street somewhere. Whereas this feels more like the character and essence and personality of Cambridge in a way. And so, no pressure. It feels like the personality of Cambridge that you're capturing. And I think it's just really good that a photography project that is purely using images with some bios for some people here and there, it's just really good that it can communicate that. Would you say, this is going to be a big question, but would you say that it's fallen into that sort of, do you think it's fallen into that accidentally, or it's just sort of coincidental that it's kind of been given that, or do you think that was sort of the purpose you set out with it, to sort of want to...
Entirely accidentally.
Entirely accidentally.
Yeah.
So that's a big question. Very short answer. I should prep better. So, where do you see the project going next? I suppose. Do you think it will evolve past this? Do you think you'll look for more? Is there anything you'll add to it?
So, yeah, that's interesting. So, I think the longevity of the project is probably going to be for a good number of years, because we have a fresh influx of students each year as well, and that's something I'm really interested to kind of see. I want to be able to, you'll be able to kind of pick out fashion trends, for example, and I think for me also, it's I want to meet more people, and I think what's great about this is, again, as you said, Cambridge is such a small city. You see the same people all the time, but then you get kind of people going in, people going out. And I think I am looking at ways to maybe add different style of content without kind of moving too far away from how it is now. and there's talk about maybe making a book and maybe doing an exhibition at the UL. That's probably not going to be for a little while now because they've got the samurai exhibition. Oh, by the way, the samurai exhibition at the UL, you need to go and see that. It's brilliant.
Not sponsored.
Yeah. So that might be going ahead maybe later on in the year, maybe 2023. So if you're lucky enough, you might find yourself blown up really large in the main entrance of the library.
I think it's really incredible that a project that started where it is sort of just in the social media space can and hopefully will evolve to be full gallery exhibitions. I mean, a book sounds incredible. I'd have that. But the book sounds like it would be an awesome idea. And I think that I think sort of with summary of it, it's one of those projects that's very hard to encapsulate everything behind it because there's so much and so many tangents to it about what's great about meeting all the people, seeing all the details, realising it's about sort of everyone and no one in the nicest way because it's about all of Cambridge as a character in itself, if that makes sense. And so I think it's just one of those things that for people wanting to know more, I'd say talk to Mark afterwards because I know he's so passionate about it. He will gladly answer any questions you have about it. But I think also just go and follow Human in Cambridge on social media. And I think that's one of the best ways to show it because there's just so much. Like, I mean, you've said that the amount of the backlog of photos that you have and the amount of like Google Drive space that must take up, like it just must be insane.
Yeah, it's I feel a bit guilty sometimes because I've been when I first started really getting into it, I'd photograph lots of people and then I'd dump a whole load of images on Instagram, and then I'd find there'd be a couple of days that I maybe get one picture on the street, and then I'd worry about not having enough content to put on there. And then when I did an interview with the Cambridge edition, and then they did the first kind of feature for me, they said that I'm taking a photo a day, and I was like, oh shit, I need to get on this. I need to make sure I do this. So I went out, and then before Christmas, I photographed as many people as I could, and then I'm trying to create little archives. So I used to shoot in the afternoon, go home, edit them, and then post them straight away as quick as I could. And I found that was getting a little bit overwhelming because I've got my own life to kind of live as well, and work on top of that. And what I do now is I photograph a whole load of people, and then edit a few or maybe a week's worth, and then have those ready to go each morning now. So I've changed the time frame when I post. But there's a bit of a wait. There's probably about a month waiting list now to actually get on the page. So I'm trying to kind of, put in priority order people that I photograph because I don't want anyone to think that I've taken the photo and they're never going to see themselves in there. If you do get photographed, you will be on the project.
I thought I'd been binned off. I must have looked that bad that I thought I'd been binned from the project. But you will be there, trust me. And I think just to sort of, I kind of forgot what I was going to say. I think sort of to summarise it, the only way, or one of the best ways to appreciate the project at more depth is one, talk to Mark, or two, again, just go and view his work on social media, Facebook, whatever, because you will just see the breadth of it and just how much it captures and how incredible it is, all that it captures. I mean, I'm sure you've seen so many different colours and outfits and people on just these few slides with these few images that are just already covering such a breadth of different people. It's incredible. And I think because this is, for me, a great example of a passion project that has had such a huge evolution from where it started and just the sort of like building a community around it and just everything it stands for. So for anyone out there that sort of has these projects that they're not like a passion project that maybe they don't know where they want it to go or they just have an idea, is there any advice you would give for these sort of projects or street photography or not?
Yeah, no, but if you have something in mind, like stick at it, and literally commit yourself to it. This is the only way that I've actually managed to kind of keep this going. And as you said before, it's I do it on my lunch break, and then I go home, and then I can spend hours at home working on it. And then sometimes at the weekends I'll go through images, and I might spend a whole day kind of editing and preparing the images for posting. So it's almost like a second job for me. But I do it because I love it, you know, and I love. I think the greatest joy I get from is obviously kind of interacting and taking pictures of people, but it's actually, and I actually never look at the back of the screen. In fact, I never use the back of the screen on the camera. I shoot through the viewfinder, take the shots, never show them the images, and then, in fact, I've only had a couple of people ask me, like, "Oh, can I see the pictures?" And I'm like, "No." Trust me, they'll look good. Yeah, they'll look good when they go out. But I think the biggest joy for me is actually seeing them and going through them, and remembering the little moments of when I actually took that photograph. Because photography for me has always been about remembering the moment of, you know, when you captured that you know, the photograph, and going through each shot. Like I did a family shoot at Botanical Gardens at the weekend, and it was a great day, really nice. But going through the photos and then just seeing like the smiling faces and just the interactions, and that's what I love about it. And might have gone on a tangent there.
That's right. I think, again, that's one of the things I love about it as well, because it's, as I said before, it's capturing the character of Cambridge, but I think it also captures the memory as well, like for you specifically. But I think for anyone perhaps who was sort of, you know, there, like they saw Mark shooting one of these people, or they're in the background somewhere, or, you know, you might remember that time, oh, I was there that day. And even though it's just a small memory, you know, like maybe nothing important, but you remember the time you were there, and you remember maybe the people you saw and what you did. And I think in a grander sort of scheme of things, it's like the memory of yourself in Cambridge, and it's kind of like a catalogue of the memories of Cambridge in a way, in a deeper sense.
For me also, because Cambridge is, for me, the way I see it is, the Cambridge students of today are, you know, tomorrow's kind of future. And maybe in like the next 10, 15, 20 years, when, you know, some of you guys maybe become politicians, or, you know, run a country in some way, you know, you've got this little kind of token.
Yeah, and I think that's really lovely as well.
Yeah.
I think that's a really nice just way to approach it as well, which I think is a really unique thing for a lot of photography projects as well. So yeah, so I think that's really good. I think it's all just an incredible project, and definitely encourage you to all just go check it out or talk to Mark afterwards. And speaking of, we're going to move into a little Q&A session now, if that's still okay with you. So if any of you have any questions you'd like to ask Mark, hands up. And
Don't
yeah,
you
just,
dare.
not Dom.
Not
Dom's not allowed. So if any of you have any questions, yeah, feel free. Dom?
What is your favorite picture you've taken so far? I'm not going to go with
What is my favourite?
picture you've taken so far. What is your favorite portrait of the whole project?
I think with Nicola, that's always been my favourite. But to be honest, there's so many now. It's quite hard to make a choice. I think my favourite selection of images are probably my most recent work, because the style and how I colour grade the images have obviously evolved. They're a lot more vibrant and bright now, which is to reflect people's fashion, what they're wearing, but also the personalities. So, again, that's one of the core aspects of the ethos behind it, is to actually, you know, bring out people's characters and the little nuances in their expressions. So it's hard for me to have a favourite, apart from the Nicola one.
So another question will be the same question, kind of. So if you had to choose your cover for the book,
It'd probably be yeah.
Okay, so that's your favorite.
Yeah.
Easy. So I would like to thank you, like, personally, because this project gives like.
By the way, you're not in there. You should have been in there. By the way,
It's okay.
you didn't put it in.
I'm sorry. I didn't put myself in. I didn't put myself in.
This project gives like more soul to the city. For people who live here, they know about it. Like, it has to be, because trends are set, and this is one of them. So for people who live in Cambridge, this is like a nice little thing to look forward to. And people who visit the city, they get this kind of like, you know, surprise effect. Oh my God, look at this! Like, Cambridge, this is cool. Like, oh, the city has this shit. Other than New York, of course.
Yeah.
But not of this kind of same level. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Yep.
Did you?
You can say drawing this by like throwing out drawing stickers or something, so plaster them all over the town. So like, have you seen this man? Everyone can come and find you and wear their best clothes. You feel that?
No, I haven't, but that's quite a good idea. Yeah, yeah.
But
I'll chat to you later.
I find that interesting though, the fact that there aren't things like that, but so many people like know who he is, and just like the connection it's built even without that sort of promotional material, I think is just mad, and just one of the interesting characters about the whole thing. So yeah, Alex, sorry, I kind of got rid of you there. But
Did you ever consider at any point shooting a project on film?
No, but I do love film, and I think that's something we haven't touched on. When I first started projects, when I was processing images, I wanted to emulate the film look, because shooting on this with the 1.4 lens, you kind of create that kind of medium format kind of aesthetic, and I wanted to give it more of an analog look. So I'd always introduce grain, and just a fine grain. So some of the images at the very beginning were, because I was working so quickly, sometimes I wouldn't always get everything spot on in focus, because I think we're all so pixel perfect, the attention to detail for that we kind of we're so focused on that we detract from what we're trying to capture overall. So I would probably sometimes make it a bit too grainy just to hide the fact that I might not quite got it right. But then sometimes some shots out of focus depend. It's all subjective, really.
I find it quite interesting as well that when you say you don't look at the images, you're kind of treating the digital camera like a 35mm camera in the sense you don't look at the images.
Yeah, and what I love about this camera as well is I treat it as if it is an analog camera. I don't use any, I don't look at the screen. I use everything on the dials, and I think for me it's just more old school in that way. I'm old school, so I appreciate it, and again, it's really important whatever you're doing, if you're photographing on the street or something, an event, don't look at your images. You can do that later. Just take the shots, look through the viewfinder, get your composition right, and shoot. And then you'll be rewarded when you look at the images and when you actually upload them later.
You have to practice that, because I just get scared. Get sad. Anyway,
Follow-up question. I know Fujifilm do a lot of like recipes where you do a lot of editing in camera.
I don't do it. No, I don't do any of that.
You just shoot raw.
No, yeah, shoot raw. So I do like some of the presets, but you have to shoot JPEG to apply those, or JPEG and RAW. And I don't see really the point of shooting both files when you're probably going to change, tweak it yourself. All the color grading that I do to the images, they're all kind of, I think it's gone through 3 different transitions. And there was one preset that I made that I used, and I've done something weird. And you might notice in some of the older photographs where anything with like black or anything with lines or anything, it wasn't a moire effect. It was like a purple bleeding going through. So if there were blue pinstripes, it suddenly like have this weird purple kind of tinge going across it. I was like, this isn't right. So I had to tweak around with it a little bit. But then again, I've seen Hassan. I think he uses one of the presets, and it looks gorgeous for his style of work. It just doesn't work for mine.
Any other questions? Yep.
With your platforms, are they kind of affected by people in the outfits that you photograph, and is there kind of a relationship?
I'm really sorry. Can you speak up a little bit? Sorry.
For the backgrounds in the photos, are they affected by the people in the outfits that you photograph? Is there like a relationship there?
Yeah. So what I try and do is, because I only operate in a specific area, I do try and kind of mix it up a little bit, and I'll try and position them so things aren't repeated quite a lot. But say somebody's wearing yellow or whatever, I'll look for something that has a bit of yellow in the background, and it's really nice because you complement the background, obviously complements the foreground, and you kind of build a nice little kind of color palette. That's what I do. If I can't, then I just work with what I've got. But I always look for, matching colours in the background.
Anyone else?
Do you go anywhere other than Kingsbury much?
So I've tried to, again, it takes me 10 minutes to walk into town, 10 minutes to walk back. So literally I've got about half an hour. King's Parade, Market Square. If I've got time, I'll go down. I have gone down Sydney Street a few times. It's basically just a big circle, Trinity Street. If I had 2 hours lunch break, then I would venture a lot further. And again, wherever I go, I take my camera with me, which is, if you're a photographer, and you really should take a phone camera, any kind of camera. But I'll come down at the weekends and maybe spend an hour, maybe 2 hours, but I will kind of venture a little bit further. But yeah, that's kind of my route at the moment, just King's Parade kind of area, which makes it a little bit harder to kind of try and make it look different, because I think there was a little period where I was just photoing King's Parade all the time, and things were looking a little bit too samey, and I wanted to draw more attention to the people and the diversity in the people, rather than having repetition. You know what I mean?
I wonder if you get different sort of people depending on where you went. Like the Centre of Cambridge is somewhere that I would kind of avoid typically, and somewhere like Mill Road is a place that I would be all the time.
Yeah, well, again, I used to live down Mill Road for 10 years, and it's just too far for me at the moment. What I did find was the reason why I shoot quite wide on the lens, so I'll normally shoot about 2.3, 3.5, because I want to kind of separate the subject from the background. And I think at the beginning of the project, when there was a lot less people around, it was quite nice because you could properly isolate them. But I did find it quite difficult when it started getting a little busier. You have all this distraction in the background. So I do try and I'll take about 3-5 shots for each scene that I take. And again, I just try and isolate them best I can. Sometimes I've got somebody's foot going through or whatever, but sometimes it works. It just depends,
Anyone else? Yep.
I just wanted to ask, because obviously you mentioned most of your shots are done during your lunch break,
Yeah.
so mostly in the daytime. Have you ever thought about doing nighttime shots and how that might...
I've tried. Do you know what? This camera's not very good for doing night photography. The Sony cameras are way better. But I really like working with natural light. I hate it when it's really sunny. It's a real nightmare. So I always find that a bit of a challenge. If it is really sunny, I'll kind of drag them off into the shade somewhere, like down an alley. Sounds a bit creepy, but yeah.
Do you have a question?
Which photo lens do you usually use when you use the picture? Is it 35?
Sorry, say again, sorry.
Which focal lens do you usually use when
Oh,
you take a picture?
so I'm using the 56mm on this one, which is equivalent to an 82mm on a 1.5 sensor.
Okay.
Crop sensor. I've actually sometimes I shoot about 35mm on the 23mm lens, but I find you get a nicer telephoto effect with this particular lens. I have got an 80mm, which is about 120. Again, that's really nice. It's quite sharp at 1.8, but it's you've really got to distance yourself with this. With the 23-35mm equivalent, to get the shots that I want to get, you've got to get really close to the subject. And again, during a lockdown, that really wasn't a good thing to do. So this is quite nice because you can have a nice distance, but you can still get close enough to get like nice fine details. and it's my go-to lens.
Any other questions? Yep.
Do you give like suggestions of like how to pose? Like because a lot of people they are posing like.
So I tell people not to pose,
Okay.
and because I just want them to be themselves. And again, when I always crack the "you just want a million potatoes," that really does relax them, and then that's when you get all the shots that really
Some
bring
people
out.
are, like jumping or like doing something unknown.
Yeah, so the girl you saw jumping there, because she was very bubbly and stuff, and I said, "Oh, just if you just want to like jump around, be crazy," and she went for it, and when you meet people like that, it just makes the whole process so much more fun. I really enjoy it. It's really good.
Anyone else? Yep.
So I guess as you're walking around your lunch break, a lot of these people must also be doing the same thing, going about their sort of daily lunchtime rituals.
Yeah.
Do you think you're at a point or reach a point where you notice other people's rituals if they do like the same group and the same lunch every day? Are you at a point where you notice the same couple of people in the same place?
Yeah. There's Marek. Do you know him?
Yes.
Yeah. So I saw him pretty much all the time outside Cafe Nero, and again he's very very well dressed. He's always got funky trainers on or glasses, and there's him, and there's a few people that there's what's her name, Canadian girl, and she'd always kind of walk around. I see a lot of the same people a lot of the time, and I do photograph the same people, not just because it's they're the same people, but I'm like, well, you're looking, you've got this awesome. I've got to photograph you, yeah.
Anyone else? Like two more? No? Fair enough. Yeah.
Why Fuji? Well, it's a good question. I think, to be honest, call me vain. Aesthetically, I like the way that the camera looked, and I like the fact that it had the manual dials on the top. And I wanted something that I would feel comfortable taking out. And at the same time, what I found is, again, it's not very. It's obviously very much less intrusive than having the big DSLR, but because it looks nice, it does get a lot of comments, and it helps kind of spark a bit of conversation with the sitter as well. But I like the fact that it's digital, it's mirrorless, and it works as using a film camera, because you can change the aperture with the lens itself, rather than having to faff around with buttons. Literally, I use this, shoot, maybe change the shutter speed. That's it. Simple.
So anyone got one more? Yep.
Do people ever approach you and ask you to take pictures of them, or is it always you taking pictures?
Yeah, most of the time it's me approaching them, but then sometimes somebody will see me or recognise me and ask if I'll take the photo, and yeah, I'll always say yes. There's been, I remember I photographed one girl, in fact there's two girls at the same time, who came up, who basically said that, I've been waiting about a year to get my photograph taken. I'm so happy. So yeah, but yeah, if people, I do try and encourage people as well. Like if you see me on the street, just like come and say hi, and if you want your photo taken, I'll be more than happy to.
So prepare all your freshest outfits for the weekend, because you'll be on King's Parade looking for Mark. I'll admit I did. So yeah, I think that'll sum up the Q&A session. If you guys have any more questions you want to ask Mark that you didn't say, feel free to come chat to him after we've finished. I'm sure he'll be happy to answer any questions. Also, if you guys have any work or pictures that you want to show Mark, get some feedback. Or website. Or website. Feel free to talk to Mark. Mark has his own website that's got a lot of his work from. It's also got your sort of some of the work you've done at the CAM library.
Yeah.
Some of the work you scanned.
Yeah.
Mark's also scanned some of the Codex Bibles.
So I've digitized. So we've got one of 11 paper copies of the Gutenberg Bible. So I've photographed one of those in its entirety, which is pretty cool. I've digitised Sir Isaac Newton's papers. I forget which codex it is. I photographed, when I worked at Fitzwilliam Museum, I photographed Egyptian mummified heads. It was like covered in gold leaf that had the scalp of another person. Really creepy. And just for facts, anything that's mummified flesh smells like a very strong pot puree. It's very bizarre, very potent.
So if that's something you wanted to come to this talk and find out about, now you know. So that's markbox.co.uk. Is that what it? The website for all the stuff?
Markbox.co.uk. Yeah.
So if you want to see any mummified heads, go there as well. But also, if you want to see Mark's photography work, like I said, social media, that's where you're going to see the whole breadth of his work and really get a feel for the project. Thank you for coming, guys. Another big thank you to Mark. There's our faces, if you didn't want to be vain enough. Feel free to scan the QR code as well if you'd like to get more information. QPay, membership, all the stuff is on there. But yeah, thank you for coming along, and thank you to Mark again. Cheers. Thank you very much. That was awesome.
Shall I turn this off? Dom. Shall I turn this off?
Oh, thank you. Thank you.